Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful when the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Okay, yeah, I'm late. I'm still eating food. I don't know what the deal is. Day after debate, I'm like really tired. And, there's a lot of reading to do and so forth. So I didn't be late. So I apologize. We just got initial jobless claims 840,000 versus 820,000. Come in here. I think a few things are still loading here. Hold on. Okay. So here, I'm just going to go through these really quick. Yesterday, Monster Rally recovered overnight above the previous day's high. So they basically don't care, shrugging off or whatever, that the stimulus still is not happening. You go on CNBC, and the lead story is futures higher over stimulus hopes. So apparently, because we'll get an airline bill and these other things, they're still happy. I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Treasury is getting down there. Remember, I said 136 key level, and we're pretty close down to that 138.18.5 pivot. Kind of getting down there. Oil up overnight. Fairly significant move. Gold reclaiming 1900 again. We'll see if they take off. They kind of looking like they're ready to go. I don't know. Copper is, had a good day yesterday, but it's still ranging. Man, copper has been volatile lately, hasn't it? We are on the daily ES. They're ripping to go back up there. I don't know. Okay. So we're getting a bit of a reaction to news. Overall, the bulls definitely are, in charge, as you'd expect. It's nothing too crazy. So, by the way, the dollar, which I keep forgetting the dollar lower from yesterday. So, Baron Glass says the president is on Fox Business still. Oh, I did not know that. I haven't gone through and read Twitter yet. I have some food that I want to eat, Pop-Tarts, which I shouldn't be eating, but we got to talk about the debate first, shouldn't we? Well, let's start text-to-speech. I'll go through it, and then I'll turn to the text-to-speech on, and you guys can tell me what you guys think. Okay. So, I felt yesterday, at the beginning of the debate, I was very upset. I did not feel that Mike Pence did a good job at countering Kamala Harris's claims that the administration's response to coronavirus was a complete disaster. I did not feel that he did a good job countering those claims. But then the rest of the debate, he did really, really well. And Kamala completely bombed on almost every other issue, except for maybe foreign policy. So, especially the issue of will they pack the courts? That was a complete disaster for her. That's probably going to move the needle for a lot of people, because that's a real fundamental change to the way that American democracy and the Supreme Court works, and that would have far longer lasting impact on our country than almost anything else. And to not answer and give a straight answer on that question was incredibly damaging to Biden's campaign. Okay, but the problem is that, again, the thing that's dogging Donald Trump the most is the response to coronavirus. That the impression that they don't care about Americans' health and that they were more interested in getting the economy going than anything else. And they are just simply have not pushed back against those claims very effectively. I think it's kind of a losing argument because you kind of have to be able to say that, you know, there's only so much you can do. And, that doesn't really play very well. I am seeing a little bit of movement here. I'm hearing that Donald Trump is saying something on Fox Business about tariffs. Trump, I plan to use tariffs on China in the second term. Well, the human is not really reacting to that. But anyways, so that's kind of my take. Overall, I thought Kamala Harris was a disaster, but because Pence did not succeed on the most critical issue, I can't really consider it a win for Donald Trump. And I mean, the thing is they need big wins because they're behind right now. At least in polling wise, they're really far behind. So a lot of talking here on my squawk. My squawk is a lot louder today. I'm going to turn him. Well, I'm just going to move that to even. And I'm going to turn him down over here because that was loud. It was, polluting my thoughts. Hard to talk over that. Yeah. Anyways, I mean, there's like one point as an example, probably the best example here, where I don't think that Mike Pence pushed back against this very well, was that the moderator threw him a freebie. The moderator actually did try to be balanced. I thought that some of the questions were incredibly, poor. I'm okay with a question that's designed to be difficult for a candidate, but it shouldn't be biased and have inherent assumptions in it that could be wrong and frame the question unfairly, right? But she went in and she said, "Why is the death rate so high?" Well, guys, the reason the death rate is so high is because Democrat governors in New Jersey and New York made a terrible mistake and opened up the vulnerable population to have the virus completely spread through them. And that's why our death rate is so high. If you take that out, it's pretty much on par with everybody else. And there is nothing unusually bad about the United States response to coronavirus. In fact, we're finding in Sweden that not having a full shutdown at all is actually works okay. Apparently, at least it wasn't a complete disaster. So, and we still have the winter to go through. So some of these countries might not end up doing as well because their population is still more vulnerable because they don't have as much herd immunity. Anyways, they threw him a bone and he didn't take advantage of it. So also, I'm seeing there's a CNN poll saying that who won the debate and everything. I just realized that the who won the debate poll is kind of a game that the media plays that is not really very indicative of what the actual impact of the debate is, right? What happens on individual issues and how much people care about those individual issues matters a lot more, all right? Okay, so there's my spill on the debate. Let's change the thing here. I haven't been putting day trading futures live stream in there for a while. I didn't even know if putting live stream in the title really matters, but my resident debate recap. That's what we're gonna call it. We'll talk about it more throughout the session as you guys bring it up because I know that there's going to be a lot to talk about. But I'm gonna take a break here and eat some food. And the market's not really moving a whole lot despite a lot of stuff coming out there, so this is kind of curious. The treasuries are a little higher though, which we should definitely make note of. And flattening. Hmm. Okay. So, just looking here, and hmm, um, so a couple of things I'm seeing now that I missed. Donald Trump earlier today saying that talks have restarted and that there's some hope on a stimulus deal. Um, hmm,
Uzi Knesset says a mainline me some hopium.
right. I'm also learning that the debate commission wants to do the next debate as a virtual debate, and Donald Trump is saying that he will not participate in such a debate. He was talking on Fox Business. I guess he's done now, but lots of conflicting information today, to be honest. So I was able
Uzi Knesset
yesterday.
says Trump trying to be the symbol of a return to normalcy.
Well, yeah. So the thing is, man.
Uzi Knesset says except Trump isn't normal lol.
Well, the problem is that they're trying to say return to normal, but then they're not actually being completely upfront about why. Like you can sit down and you can say, look, we have therapeutic drugs, and there's no reason to be shutting things down anymore. It doesn't really help. The only thing that helps is protecting the vulnerable population. But they're not saying that. They're just being like, return to normalcy. And so what people are hearing is, oh, the coronavirus is still running amok. Everybody's going to die. And Donald Trump just wants to open things back up. And he's not going to do anything about it. That's what they're hearing. It's not winning messaging from the president, if I'm honest. They've got to get together a better thing, and part of it is that they're going to have to tell people the things that they don't want to hear. That shutting down the whole economy doesn't help, the death rate. Y'all gonna catch it.
Uzi Knesset says well, you're not gonna change that reaction to be honest. The virus is political now. Rationality is lost to the void.
I'm just watching this debate yesterday, and I felt like Kamala Harris said a number of things on the coronavirus that were just completely and utterly false. And Pence didn't really do anything to come in and say, well, you're wrong. He let her get away with it. And just went back to kind of standard talking points. Oh, we feel like our first responders are so good, and thank you for the question. Stop thanking the moderator. That was the other thing that drove me nuts yesterday. Stop thanking the moderator for the question. She just threw at you an incredibly tilted, biased question. You're thanking her. Ugh. This is the perfect
Uzi Knesset
example.
says the most standout thing Kamala Harris said was her response to the moderator when she said, "That's a good segue into my next question," and Kamala immediately said, "Yes, a great segue."
Well, I mean, she knew what they were going to segue into because
Uzi
Pence had just
Knesset
talked
says I
about
suppose Harris knows what isn't a great segue into a question she has no idea is coming.
Well, at the moment that the moderator said that, though, we all knew what the question was going to be, right? Because Pence had just had moved from talking about one thing to the next thing, and the next thing it was very clear what he was talking about. And then, of course, Kamala was like, "Oh, this is a subject that I think is in my favor." I have to say, it's been really surprising to me how effective both Donald Trump and Mike Pence have been at rebutting the climate change narrative is so incredibly effective, and I really feel like they completely killed climate change as an issue in the campaign. If coronavirus wasn't happening, I'm sure that would be the big thing that they would be pushing. Is these forest fires and these hurricanes, and I think that it would fall flat. I think that Pence and Trump had a really great response on it. It really is kind of interesting. Kamala Harris was a complete disaster on almost every issue other than COVID. And she was lying to get her point to make points on COVID. But whether she's lying or not, it's effective. It's effective. It's been effective. You can see the polling. And I think that Trump and Pence only have themselves to blame for that. But what are you going to do? They need to focus more on that point. I don't know how you do it. They have focus groups. You got to get in there, get to the focus group, and find a point on coronavirus that resonates, especially with those white
says Harris
women.
Overperformed in the make snarky faces for the memes department. Like, she looked at Pence like he was a moron the whole time because she knew how that'd play out among the unwashed masses.
I don't think that's going to play as well. So I have to say, when I went on Reddit immediately after the debate, and I'm looking at the news and everything else, the news is, Kamala Harris told Pence to not interrupt her once, and which Pence told her like 3 times. And by the way, Kamala spoke more, which I was surprised about because it seemed like Pence was talking over his time a lot. And the debate moderator was telling Pence to stop and hurry it up, but Kamala still got more time. What? Okay, whatever. But you know that Kamala didn't do very well when what they think was the key point of the debate was that she told him to not interrupt her. Something that happens in every debate. Like, what? I thought it was so silly. I was like, dude, this is falling flat. And CNN coming out with a poll that like 60% of people thought that Harris won. I just throw those polls in the trash. They don't mean shit.
Uzi Knesset says Pence shellacked her so hard that MSNBC called the debate a draw lol.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, the thing is I was out on Facebook early being like, Pence is a disaster. Because at the very beginning, he was making all the mistakes. He was spending a lot of his speaking time thanking people. Thank you for this debate. Thank you for this submission. You got a minute. You get like 2 minutes to reboot things. You got to get to your point right away. First sentence out of your mouth has to be something impactful. You cannot waste that moment thanking people. Ooh, it drives me crazy when Republicans do this, and they always do it. I got to tell you, the Pence in those first few questions, you get that Pence, there's no way that he's going to be the candidate 2024. No chance. Because Republicans still going to want a fighter. Which probably means that Ted Cruz is probably the front runner. As awful as I don't want to say awful, but I mean that sounds pretty crazy, right? But it seems to me that Ted Cruz is the front runner right now. Because Pence just, kind of took that sort of stuff. He should have come out with the first one. The debate started with, like, the first question was, the coronavirus is not under control. That is such a tilted presentation of the facts. Listen, you can't control nature. The coronavirus is a thing, and it spread, and there was literally nothing anybody could have done to prevent that. Every country in the world has been having problems with the coronavirus. Even in New Zealand, where they pride themselves on not having any cases, they've been shutting down the whole country. Okay? Everybody has been affected. And to try and presented it in a way to say that it's Donald Trump's fault that the coronavirus is not contained is absolutely ridiculous. You cannot contain nature. Once these things are out, the best you can do is deal with it. And Pence didn't push back against that at all. Man, I'm more uppity about this than I realized. It gets me going. Man, the E-mini is pretty flat here. Normally we get like a good move at the top of the hour, but with the way that it's trading, I don't think that really makes much sense. I have this one strategy, and it uses tick replay, and I'm trying to figure out like why. I mean, it shouldn't need tick replay, but why does it take so? Why does it never finish loading? Never finishes loading. What the hell? I want to fix this. Because it was a good strategy. It backtests really well, and it continues to backtest really, really well. And I want to. Oh shit! I just crashed Ninja. The new Squawk tweets the best work from home setup so far. Oh, and this guy, he's got a green screen going, and it makes it look like he's up in space. That's funny.
Diva Geraldine says, what platform are you using?
So I'm using NinjaTrader for the charts, and I'm using Jigsaw for my execution and the DOM. Get it going again. So this little experiment over here obviously did not work out. Is it possible for me to add it without?
Sunday Driver says Pence was too kind. Harris is such a disgusting human being.
You think it was too kind? I thought that his demeanor worked really, really well, but he just needed to push back against the questions and the lies harder. I mean, it was kind of clever watching him go through and being, okay, well, here's why everything that you just said is ridiculous. But I think it was too subtle. I don't think that people will catch it. Okay. So can I? It crashes. And it crashes. Let's see if it outputted an error when we did that. What is it about this strategy that it doesn't like? Well, if you're watching this and you're thinking, wow, man, NinjaTrader is really bad, it's absolutely my fault.
Sunday driver says Harris denied freedom to prisoners so California could have cheap labor. She also slept her way to the top.
Yeah. Who cares? Honestly, they're not going to win you an election. Here's the issue is that, like, normally
Ace Trades
personal
says it's
attacks
Sunday
like
driver
that.
I. Diva Gerlin says any thoughts on Interactive Brokers TWS platform?
Well, if you are trading futures, I would highly recommend that you go with a broker and a software platform
Ace Trades
that
says
is
it's Sunday
specific to
driver I am
futures.
okay with all that.
That is specific to futures. So when you go with, Interactive Brokers or Thinkorswim, because you can trade futures on both of those platforms, you're going to play higher commissions, and you're not going to get some of the tools that I really think you need to play the futures really well. You can get it to work, and I know people that do it. And obviously, if you are really into trading the stocks and options, then you might not have a choice. But I think that the preference would be that you have a broker that is really good for trading options, and you have a broker that is really good for trading futures. And yeah, you might have multiple platforms going. So let me close this chart here. Anyways, any other election, these personal attacks on the candidates would be a big deal. But have you noticed there's been a lot of personal attacks on both Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and it's not moving anybody. It's not moving anybody. Here's the thing. This is a base turnout election. And you've got these people in the middle on the fringes. Okay? These people, you have two of the most known people in all of politics. Everybody knows who Joe Biden is. Everybody knows who Donald Trump is. They have opinions about them. Those opinions are extremely unlikely to change. And that is why the only thing that matters, in my opinion, literally the only thing that matters is what those people kind of on the fringes believe about the administration's response to the coronavirus pandemic. That is the only thing that matters. When they went with Donald Trump in his debate, the impression they came back with was that he is not equipped to be able to respond to the pandemic effectively. That was the takeaway from that debate. That's what people believe. And that's why his numbers are just absolutely dismal after the debate. Okay. Last night, Mike Pence, I thought looked really competent and really schooled Kamala Harris on almost every issue. But the issue remains that there's still a narrative that the Trump administration has failed to respond to the coronavirus pandemic effectively, and that they care more about getting the economy running again than they do about people's health. And unless you convince white suburban women that that is not true, Donald Trump is going to lose. Straight up. It's the only thing that matters. So you can tell me everything that you want about how awful Kamala Harris is and how stupid Joe Biden is and that he's going to die and everything like that. It's not going to change the election. You should be focusing, if you want Donald Trump to win, you should be focusing all of your efforts on proving to people that the pandemic response was appropriate and effective. It says, wow, no long, short, 34.3. Oh, 34.26, you mean? I mean, I kind of see the short, but I'm not really a huge fan of this market right now. I really think that we should kind of sit back a little bit and let the market show us a little bit more, because there's a lot going on, and they don't really seem to be too anxious to move yet. The narrative should be how irresponsible China was and what we need to do about it. There you go. So that Donald Trump and Pence have been pushing that. It's true. China intentionally forced coronavirus on the world. They let it escape. They could have, they shut down, like, the thing that's crazy is they shut down travel to the rest of China, but they didn't shut down international travel. They intentionally spread it. And they should have to pay for it. Yeah, true. But I don't really think that one really does it. Because it doesn't convince white suburban women that Donald Trump cares about their health. You know? Oh, so my typing is with 9 fingers today. Oh, gosh dang it. Do need it. Delta MACD. What is that? Oh. It's a MACD run on the cumulative delta. Oh, I forgot how weird this strategy that I wrote was. It's a little weird. But the result I come back with is that the cumulative delta would, well, actually, I'm going to try it one more time. I might crash NinjaTrader trying to do this, but I'm going to try it one more time. I'm going to add this strategy, and I'm not going to click tick replay. I am going to run it on a 1 minute chart, and I'm only going to load one day. And okay. And now I am going to try to enable it. Open up a new. Okay. It seems to be running. Oh, I just killed it again, didn't I? What happened? I got it working. I think I got it working, and then I tried fixing the other ones, and it does this shit. What is wrong with NinjaTrader, huh? Oh, so if no one mentions Jesus or the end of the world, we'll be okay. Yeah, let's not. Today the discussion is the debate. So you guys are cool. The thing is I totally agree with you guys. Like Sunday Driver says, Tulsi destroyed Harris with her record. Pence didn't even bring it up. Pence did bring it up, but she's not running, for starters. And I'm just telling you, like there's a pandemic. Like here's like this perfect example. Really, is that when Tulsi destroyed Harris over her record, that was before there was a pandemic. Okay. Now that there's a pandemic, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The only thing that people are going to vote on is who they think is going to handle a pandemic better. I'm really worried about it, to be honest with you. They're going to shut everything back down again. Winter's going to come, cases are going to be rising, and any cases rising, they're going to say, well, we need to shut things down. It's going to be a disaster. You add on top of that all of these other things that they want to do. Like honestly, think about it. You come in and you do a $4 trillion stimulus, and then you undo all of that by shutting things down again. Yeah. You can only take on so much debt before it's a problem. And if we're going to add adding trillions, a trillion twice, right? We did one, and then there was a second one. There was another trillion, right? I don't recall. Can't even remember all this stuff anymore. But they go in and they add $4 trillion to this. It's going to be a problem. And the rates are going to rise if they do that. The rates are going to rise, and it's going to be a real problem. Because then all of these companies that are burdened with debt, they're really going to go. Right now, based off of the analysis that I've read, the people that really got hit were bound to fail, essentially. That makes sense. They're already burdened with debt, and they were going to go out of business sooner or later anyways. Well, there's something in this workspace that's killing it. Frustratingly, none of the nothing comes out in the log at all. Oh, it started doing back testing on something. That must have been why it fails. Germany's Chancellor Merkel, I don't want a repeat of spring coronavirus situation in Germany. Is too soon to give an all clear. Close this chart. Don't touch anything. Let it all load. 90% of voters vote by party. You have a pretty high hopes for Americans to think they vote by policy? Well, that's not true at all, actually. I think it's something like 60%. But, I mean, come on. It's pretty obvious what's going on with the polling. Donald Trump was so clearly ahead. Joe Biden didn't stand a chance, and then the pandemic happened. I mean, what else are we supposed to conclude from that? What did the polls say in 2016? Okay. So this is one that I really have to knock down, because I think that there's a narrative out there about what the polling said or didn't say in 2016 that is frankly not accurate. In 2016, the polls said essentially what they are saying today. But in the last 2 weeks of the election, there was a game-changing October surprise wherein Hillary Clinton was that the investigation over her emails was basically like restarted. And that created momentum for Donald Trump in the last 2 weeks. And then there was not any late polling in the key swing states. So Donald Trump was experiencing momentum and they weren't polling it. And that's why the polling turned out to be the way that it did. Okay. So the key thing here is that Donald Trump had a late momentum swing. Okay. If he doesn't get a late momentum swing, then it's not going to turn out that the same way. You're not going to get this thing where the polling is wrong. And I would hope that they learned and make sure that they have a lot of polling in those those swing states, in the days leading up to the election, so that they actually do have accurate polling going into there. So the narrative that the polling was wrong last time, so it's going to be wrong this time, is a common fallacy that past results is indicative of future results. And it's not true. Because the polling was wrong last time doesn't mean that it's going to be wrong this time. And that's why I say what we should really do is we should look at why was the polling wrong last time. The polling was wrong last time because there was a late momentum shift and they weren't polling late in the contest, okay? If there's not a late momentum switch, and what makes you think that there's going to be one, then it's not going to turn out that same way. The Republic is lost if Biden wins. Well, let's just try not to think about it. Okay, save. Removed all the strategies. Everything should be clean. We will be all right. Well, I mean, it depends on what they've got to do. I have to say, if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris nuke the filibuster and pack the Supreme Court, it is going to be the apocalypse, man. I really don't see how they're, and then especially if they then go and admit new states so that Democrats get more senators, I really don't see how the Republic recovers from that. I really don't. I don't know if the Republic is necessarily lost, but Twitter will most certainly dictate policy if Democrats take all three branches. Oh man.
Philly Beats You says I hated how she dodged that question and switched to be about color.
Right? I don't think that a lot of people caught that. So I think that everybody noticed that she dodged the question in the most shameless way. It's a yes or no question. And she says, oh, well, I'm going to answer the question. And then she doesn't answer the question. Given 3 chances to do it, to back off on something that important is a really big deal. Okay. But then at the end of it, she tried to change the subject by saying Donald Trump stacked the courts with white people. are you kidding me? Shameful. That one, man, that's why I'm saying, like, any other situation, that would lose you the election. Any other situation, Harris's performance there, along with Joe Biden doing the same thing essentially, would lose you the election. No question about it. Americans are not going to let you get away with not being honest with them about something that important. Because you're talking about, like, constitutional changes, essentially. But because the coronavirus pandemic and Donald Trump's personal negatives are such a huge stumbling block to a key portion, to a key demographic, I don't know if it will really matter. They should become states or be cut off, in my opinion. Well, DC should not become a state. I tell you what, if they go and they make DC a state, that's a real problem, man. The framers of the Constitution specifically made DC not a state. Yeah, you agree. But they want to do it. The Democrats think that it should happen. And they want to make Puerto Rico be a state. Hey, listen, I think Puerto Rico should be a state. If they want to be. I'm not so sure that they really want to be anymore. But that whole thing is just a big, gigantic mess. I would be totally okay with them being a state. Well, I take that back. Before all of those debt problems, I would have been totally okay with it becoming a state. Now I'm a little concerned about it. But that's not the biggest problem in the world per se. That's an overcomable problem. But the whole let's just give Democrats a permanent majority in the Senate, that's not gonna fly. Okay, I'm gonna try adding my strategy one more time now that it's all calmed down. It hasn't crashed. Okay. 1 day of data, 1 minute chart, no tick replay. Okay. Hey Lucas, how have you been? Haven't seen you a few days. Well, a few weeks really. You've probably just been watching and not talking much, which is maybe a good thing. It used to really bother me when I'd be like streaming and there'd be long pauses and nobody's doing anything. But I've since realized that, hey, it just means that they're trading and hopefully they're doing good. So, okay. It says it's running. It says it's running. So we'll see if it ends up taking trades. Good. I was just looking at your treasuries going, they became a joke, not even moving. Yeah. Well, I mean, there was the yesterday and the day before, the moves were pretty good, but they seem unsure today, don't they? It's flattening so far. I think that last night one of the Fed guys came in and said, well, we could remove some supply from the 30-year, essentially saying that they were going to come in and buy 30s. And I think that that's why they've been moving up a little bit and are flattening again. Which good, because this this kind of rate increase thing is concerning. Well, Bitcoin is up a little bit, but not a whole lot. They could maybe make 1100 today. We'll see. We get in here deep and dirty in the ES, in the Vista chart. Whether or not Republicans adhere to the teachings of Jesus isn't relevant to me. I don't know why people think religion is a cornerstone to being Republican. It's a cornerstone to being a conservative. Being conservative isn't a prerequisite to being a Republican. I actually think that it's not even a prerequisite or a factor in conservatism anymore. I really think that what happened last time around with Mitt Romney was that people kind of went for the guy that they thought was like the clean. I mean, I know that there's the whole thing with Biden, with Mormonism and all that, but it just seems to me like since Bush left, well, and really it really started while it was Bush. You have all these people that they're voting Republican because they're religious primarily, and they feel like they've been burned. I really think that's what's happened. And there's been a real shift in the Republican Party where they've said, you know what? I voted for the religious guy every time, and I never got squat. They never did what they were supposed to do. And then I went and I voted for this guy that is just the complete opposite. Is just the least God-fearing man on earth, and he's followed through on everything that he said he was going to. So maybe my idea of what is a good person, somebody that has good moral character, maybe I'm not good at determining that. Maybe that's not really a good indication of who will be a good president. And they've completely abandoned that kind of thinking. And so you can see now in the polling that Republicans no longer care about stuff like that. And when you see the polling like that in the media, the narrative is always that, oh, well, evangelicals are just abandoning their principles to vote for Donald Trump. But I think that you're going to find in the next couple of elections that it's going to continue to hold through, that they're not going to care about that stuff anymore. So Lucas says, a little scared of recent action. I am the same way, Lucas. I really shall we have a little session here? This market is incredibly volatile. It is incredibly difficult to trade. You be in a trade and it will just completely sweep and stop you out of nowhere. No way to anticipate it coming. Hey, that's always going to be a thing, but man, it's been happening a lot, and there's probably a lot of day traders now. I can see it happening. When I read Reddit and so forth, I can see it happening. People are saying, oh, you know what? Seems to me that my technical analysis doesn't really work. They're realizing it now. It's funny to see this large group of new traders that have only been trading since the summer realizing, hey, news matters more than technical analysis. And when you get into a situation like right now, especially if you're trading a small account, I'm not so sure how well you can really do just providing liquidity. So I'm not really trading too seriously until after the election. We'll see. Just like all the deniers, he has been tested positive for coronavirus. I'm concerned about all the other people who have been traveling with them. The president was wrong. Well, who cares? Who cares? I know a lot of people care. I personally don't care. Like, look, there's Secret Service. They're going to catch it. You're around the president. You're going to catch it. I think that it was foolish to think that the president could get through all of this and not catch it. I think it's foolish to think that Joe Biden's not going to catch it at some point. He is really going to have to just completely lock himself in a room through this whole thing. Maybe through, because I don't think that it's just going to be done after this year. You know? How is he going to maintain that? I've said it from the very, very beginning. Everybody's going to catch it, guys. That's the only way that this ends. So you've all caught it and you have immunity to it. It's out there now. That's the way viruses work. Except for in a few small instances. I think maybe one of the problems is that people are maybe basing some things off of like Ebola, okay? Because like Ebola is extremely deadly, and so it doesn't spread very far because of that. It's a totally different thing. You know what I mean? It isn't too bad. Just try to get in ahead of size in the book. Keep stop tight, and if she goes, yeah. Well, Uzi, I have been avoiding the treasuries because there hasn't been a whole lot of movement, but from looking at your trading, I've kind of been starting to think that, maybe there is more opportunity over there than I realized. Of course, I think for me, risk-wise, it probably makes more sense still to trade micros on the E-mini, but even worse, what about the next virus? You could solve this pandemic, but the next one might be even harder to come up with a vaccine as fast as this one. Yeah. And the problem is like the whole like shut the whole thing down is like kind of really unprecedented. And I really, if that's going to be our response to every pandemic in the future, because I mean this isn't the first pandemic that we've experienced in our lifetime. Swine flu was far more widespread, and the government response to swine flu was an absolute disaster. It's just that swine flu wasn't really very deadly, and so people didn't really hear about it, and media didn't really make as big of a deal about it. Republicans tried to make a big deal out of it, but nobody never picked up traction. Nobody cared. That still won't work. It's going to be like the flu, and you'll catch it more than once. Well, so it will evolve for sure, but there's been some evidence that some people were already immune to coronavirus from contracting other similar viruses. So, um, the idea that you're going to have like a virulent, like 2 million people die every year sort of a thing because of coronavirus is a little silly. Not going to work like that. The first move was a down move. Interesting. But cumulative delta, once again, not coinciding with that. They tried to push below buyer's cost basis. Not getting there yet. I think we'd still have to look at today as a bullish day still, but kind of on the edge of maybe flipping. Zero fatality ratios will plummet and eventually will real. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Steven says you had the flying flu. Was what do you think of Sierra Charts? I think that Sierra Charts is a pretty good platform. I don't think that Sierra Charts is nearly as good to program in, and it's not just because it's C++ and C++ is harder to write stuff in. Their way that their platform is set up, there are a lot of really simple and basic things that are completely taken care of for you in NinjaTrader, and you have to handle it yourself in Sierra Charts. And so you can see how the ecosystem in Sierra Charts is not nearly as developed as it is in NinjaTrader, and that's why. So I think that for most basic trading, Sierra Charts is probably going to be just fine, and it's a really attractive option because it's cheaper. But if you really want to get into it, you really want to get into a lot of trying a bunch of different things and getting into serious order flow indicators, there's really nothing quite stands up to NinjaTrader 8 right now. Mike Pence's pink eyes prelude, I thought that was silly. People on the internet trying to make a big deal out of 10 pixels is like, okay. Didn't get a good enough shot of him to say that he had pink eye or anything. Someone spends a lot of time on Twitter, yeah. Well, you can just tell. The thing is when you come out of the debate, what is the thing that stands out the most to that person? You know what I mean? And if the thing that stands out the most to you after the debate yesterday was Mike Pence's eye, I have to question where you're spending most of your time. Because it's not in the world of a serious political analysis. 30 viewers? That's about average. Because it's been a while. Because it used to be like we were getting 20. Well, we've been peaking around 40 most days. If you swing in talking about Pink Eye or The Fly, you ingest. Yeah, we haven't even said anything about The Fly. The guys on the Donald were talking about The Fly a lot. I didn't see too much about The Fly on Reddit. Definitely on Twitter though. So here are the first 5 minutes of the open. Incredibly tight. I can see some S&P 500 strength here, which is a little bearish. So remember that when things have been pushing up, the NASDAQ, the risk on play has been NASDAQ. And so NASDAQ was going up more than the E-mini. But I'm seeing the E-mini go up more than the NASDAQ. That suggests to me that there is not as much risk appetite out there at the moment, even if we eventually go up. But that's all very temporary. That could totally flip around in 10 minutes, you know? Twitter is where people go to become potatoes, angry potatoes. Well, I mean, here's the thing about Twitter. I think that Twitter is probably less damaging than some of the other networks. Because the thing with Twitter is that it's not, as far as I can tell, you can still view things as a continuous feed and you're just seeing the people that you follow and you see every update from them. It's not doing all of this stuff where the algorithm decides what you see and what you don't. What the heck are you talking about, oxalates? What? Okay. And Kamala Harris's facial expressions during the debate go viral. I don't get that one. I see that I'm looking at the pictures right now from the Hill and I'm like, what's the big deal? There's nothing special about it. There's nothing particularly funny or interesting about her facial expressions. It feels like a forced meme. It feels like they went out and they said, well, we really like Kamala Harris's facial expressions. So after the debate, that's going to be the thing we want to push. Don't see it. Don't see it. Well, if I come in here, it's still too tight to tell. We're probably going to see. I'm expecting that there could be some sort of a bounce. So I don't know if I'm too. Well, let's test myself here. I wasn't feeling the best coming in, but I've been yapping a lot. That can kind of get me going. Okay. So I'm a little slow. Try again. 210, that's good for me. Okay. So I think we're okay. In human benchmark, I can get 25 to 40. Well, maybe if you're maybe on a lucky, but like on an average of like 5 to 10, you're full of shit. You need to use your unconscious. You're saying that you need to use ultimate instinct. Under 200 is good. Ultra instinct. You're right. Okay, well, bulls are trying to make a push here. Bulls made a push. It came back down really quickly. It looks like they're going to go for the low. Let's see what they do. Yeah, I've been able to get under 150. Some of those pro Counter-Strike players, they're under 150 sometimes, but under 200 is above average. Below average, whatever, however it's better than average. Over 300 though, then I'm like, I start to question my mental state. So we're between 200 250 and we're in an okay spot. If I suffer a couple of losses, I might go back and check it and see if, I'm just losing my mind because of losses. Uh, you know what? We need to put Uzi back on moderator too. That'll help. Yeah, every once in a while you'll get lucky and you will anticipate it and you can, get 50, 60. But that's probably not actually a real reaction. That's probably you were just lucky to anticipate it. Yeah, I thought that you always had a wrench. I was like, how come Uzi doesn't have a wrench? Because that would maybe help deal with that sort of a problem. Okay, so they came down to the low and they didn't take it. Oh, thanks. Yeah, no, I was confused. I was like, didn't Uzi always have a wrench? I don't understand. Whatever. Okay, another bull attempt here. It's being a little thick. Huh. I'm not sure if those moves are like two guys fighting back and forth or if that's just a robot getting in and then bailing. Oh, look at that at 2750. Huh. There's a lot going on in here. Watching this order at 30 in ZB. Well, given the trend and everything, I think favoring along, right? I suppose that doing one here in the 10-year at 25 half wouldn't be unreasonable.
Uzi Knesset says it's right beneath the seller's cost basis winking face.
Yeah. It's a little curious, though, that 25 half is weak and they're not clearing it. Okay. That bull run looks a little better.
Winston's mom says good morning. Did I miss the debate recap discussion? Well,
Yep,
what did
we're
you
just
think
at
of
the
last
beginning.
night? And are you getting trolled again? Sheesh.
Just a little bit. He's bored. He's been like going crazy in the Facebook groups, saying the same kind of stupid crap. I was like, man, this kid must really just need some attention. But unfortunately, he's just being disruptive. Okay.
Uzi Knesset says welp, there it goes for a few ticks at least.
Okay. So there they are at the low again. Now they're touching it. Okay. They're still really slow and tepid about it for whatever reason. That time the micro touched a new low, but the E-mini did not. Okay, but the 10-year did finally tick up and hold it. And look, there's a big order showing up at 25. I don't know. Every time that I see big orders now, I start to get like suspicious. Because lately they've been a little sketch. Okay, there they're trying the low again. You're getting a ton of volume going into it, though. So there is a new low.
Uzi Knesset says don't take 'em all. Big orders just mean pay attention. Slightly smiling face.
For sure. I think if you were looking at it as a really good position and then the big order shows up, that's gonna be good. Okay, now some size is coming up on the offer. Did that all just barely show up? Okay, picks up again. They're not stacking much either way at 25.5 though, are they? Yeah, they're very tepid, yeah.
Uzi Knesset says nah, they're very tepid.
So we've turned bearish. We're not getting to like the stop out zone below us yet. I suppose that means that we could continue down. I'm still seeing SPOO strength versus the NASDAQ. I was watching a video yesterday. Somebody called the NASDAQ something weird. I forget what it was, though, what they called it. Anyways. Goldman, next year we expect the largest refined copper market deficit in over 15 years due to current positive demand trends. As a result, we have recently raised our copper forecasts to 7,000. think that means $7. That is like double what it is right now. Man, I guess that means go buy Rio Tinto, right? I've thought about it, but pullback still really slow. Overall, though, the headlines are all sounding bullish because we are higher than yesterday. Guess I might need to come and look at some of these previous days' levels. Like
Uzi Knesset says there's a bond auction today too, so I figure this thing might be a bit of a sandwich.
21. Yeah, there's a 30-year today, right? Yeah, it's a 30-year. Haven't seen any big orders trying to
Rex
do stuff.
says in your
I
DOM
guess there's
table,
that stuff
what
at
are the two
26.
columns in between the blue bids column and the red offers column?
So that's the market orders hitting into them. But it will reset if you come away from it and come back. It will reset back to 0, so that you can see how many orders it took to clear it. So yeah, I can see that the last tick up, it took 1,100 contracts to make it tick up, and then I can start to look so that I can see like if all of a sudden it starts going up 500, that tells you that all for whatever reason that the liquidity providers have decided that they're not going to provide liquidity at those levels anymore. Donald Trump is calling to arrest Joe Biden? Joe Scarborough is crazy, though. Don't trust what he says anymore. Good run there. We might have to flip long.
Troubleshooters says Kamala Harris was so shitty today, acted like a typical woman, nothing valid except for the hand movement and the lipstick, hope people don't vote for her.
Yeah. I don't think she did very well. No. I don't think she did very well at all, but I
Uzi
don't think
Knesset
that
says ouch lol.
yeah. I just don't think that Trump and Pence are getting it done on the issue that matters. Their narrative, they're not doing enough to change the narrative on the issue that matters, which is the response to the coronavirus. She like was like straight up lying about the response to the pandemic. It was really, I was yelling at the television. Yeah, look at that. That's they might not let me out now. They're going to try and close it on me. Okay.
Troubleshooters says I watched the debate for 10 minutes and I literally went crazy watching her. Women like her should never ever be given the chance to run for anything.
She was really bad. So like surprisingly bad.
Winston's mom says the fly won the debate.
Oh, there you go. On almost everything other than the coronavirus, she was surprisingly bad, and she won the coronavirus with what I feel are lies.
Troubleshooters says lol yeah. Uzi Knesset says up finger Twitter user lol.
I kind of thought that Wynn would come in and mention the fly. Or Kamala's facial expressions. The thing that irks me is that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are going to reimpose lockdowns. They are. It's not going to be over after the election. There's still going to be cases, and they're going to
Rex says
reimpose a
Ebola
lockdown.
is also not airborne.
And I think that we need to have this conversation again about how effective lockdowns actually are, because if we, it seems to me that we could have built up a greater immunity during the summer. Like, this is one of the things that I think people have been really deceptive on, is that we said, okay, well, things are going to heat up, so then it's not going to be as bad, and so we're not going to have the same kind of crazy breakout that they had in China. And guess what? It was true. Yeah, we still had cases, but you can see as soon as things start getting cold again, it just takes off, and it takes off so quickly that you can't respond to it. So it was imperative that we develop enough herd immunity before the fall so that we don't have a problem. And in addition to protecting the vulnerable population. And we haven't accomplished that. The United States has probably done better than other countries in this respect, but they didn't accomplish this. And so they're going to shut things down again, which just means that it will go for another year, or at least until they start inoculating everybody with a vaccine.
Winston's mom says, did you notice Mike Pence had something red in his eyes and a fat lip?
No.
Is conjunctivitis associated with COVID?
Nope. I saw the pictures, and I don't think that they have nearly enough to say anything.
Uzi
and
Knesset
that
says
just
open
looks
mouth
like,
smile.
That just looks like your typical Twitter conspiracy theory nonsense. Man, what's going on here? The liquidity in the 10 years seems to really suggest that they're going to move down, don't you think?
Hitmaker E says lol. Uzi Knesset says get off Twitter for your health. Lol. Eric McDermott says Pamela O. Biden of the swamp, she is a Fed prosecutor. Heard she held back exculpatory evidence on a death sentence case, something that would be in defendant's life she kept from such. Imagine that.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, if she was the main candidate, that could be a serious issue in the campaign. If there wasn't the coronavirus pandemic, there'd be a lot of personal things on Kamala and Biden's side that we would be able to get people to focus on. But when you have the media that's basically covering for them, and people only care about the response to the coronavirus pandemic, those things just don't seem to matter. Okay. So now they're running along. Treasury is not reacting, though. Pretty strong. Let's see here. How much room we got above us? 40, 43? The VIX has got us all the way up to 55. I'm going to go out on a limb, though, and suggest that we're not going to live up to implied volatility today, though. Yeah, it came back pretty hard. And the Treasury upticks on me again.
Eric McDermott says Trump thinks closer to a deal. Not sure how your treasuries will react to such.
I don't know. The thing is it sounds to me like the deal they're talking about is like very, very limited. like that it will be airlines and maybe stimulus checks. So there's these 6Ks at 26 and 26.5. So the ticks up and down around 25.
Uzi Knesset says ZB book narrative. Guy at 30 was hoping for longs to bail into him. Hasn't happened on the tests, so upticks.
It's still sitting there, though.
Winston's mom says 35 watching speculator Seth. Go out on a limb. If you have not already hit the like button, please take a quick second to hit like. Thanks, and traders gonna trade. We'll trade better with the mugs. Troubleshooters says trust me, I got the virus and it's bad, but a lockdown like Kamala says is needed will destroy the entire country. She was a pig who thought she understood rocket science.
Yeah. Damn. Well, we can try flipping around and we'll lose again. Damn it. Chase it and watch him go up and wash us out again. I know this game. Oh, man. And they did how much? But they cleared 48 to do it? I don't know. So okay. So clearly I'm not doing well, so I'm going to start
Vlad Stolyarov says nice flush out.
doing some
Eric
experimentation
McDermott says
here.
what? Not bailing out the Teamsters pensions California and New York too. $. In local municipalities. A few pet projects on the side. A statue of Nancy Pelosi please included in stimulus. Uzi Knesset says it's a weird gray area. Watching a big order and trying to decide whether or not to get in ahead of it. At the end of the day, ya just gotta take the shot, I guess.
Jake Sherman, House is out of session. Can something pass by unanimous consent? Not clear. Biggest question. Will mechanical support this? Sources say no, but I have to imagine that that's a soft no for the moment. We will find out soon. In short, standalone for airlines is not close to certain. Says Jake Sherman, who has been very reliable on these sorts of things. Man. So there's still quite a bit of offer side liquidity, just to note here in the 10-year. Okay. It's interesting the way that they bounced down at the bottom because it's not like they were picking up a lot of liquidity and everything. It just kind of looks like that all of the buyers, sorry, all of the sellers chased it.
Eric McDermott says, so if your treasuries go up, does that mean people on sidelines versus MKT, so a safe haven, or the opposite maybe?
In this particular case, that's probably the most likely case, yes. That they ticked up because the E-mini was starting to look weak. But, I mean, it's one or two ticks, so I don't.
Block buy.
Fine. I don't know if this is going to work because they're running into some pretty heavy liquidity here, right? I put that down there. Watch. That's exactly what they're going to do is come down and touch me. Yeah, down tick. So I'm being kind of silly about it because I mean I'm trying to catch a runner or something over here, but I know that they're really jostling it around and then I don't really know what's going to happen over here on this side.
Vlad Stolyarov says looks pretty even. Vlad Stolyarov says gap ups ruin my style. Philly Beats You says it keeps dancing to yesterday's peak on NQ.
Well, the Treasury is
Eric
kind of
McDermott
fighting
says so
around
big
there,
money
isn't
is
it?
going safe before a big drop in the MKT or other countries investing for safe haven.
It could be.
Uzi Knesset says a lot of times the market down ticks or up ticks and you'll see the bid or offer thicken up. I look at it as an attempt to entice front-running activity. Then, when it doesn't
Block
happen,
buy.
they pull.
But look, somebody is willing to buy here. So I don't know why he shoved it down the way that he did, but look, he is buying it. That's interesting. You know what? Let's stick one in here. If they get like, let's say let's say 431. I'll try and add.
Vlad Stolyarov says they aren't affected. Vlad Stolyarov says Robin Hooders don't use stops.
Not trading anything that you can see on Robinhood. Well, it was a pretty forceful down move, and now they're coming right back up there to the open. This is pretty frustrating
Uzi
action.
Knesset says another big one is past orders that sat for a while then pull away, right? If the market trades back to that point, check the Vista chart, see if there were orders there in the past.
There is something
Uzi
going on.
Knesset says a lot of times, they'll still be there, but just
27.
in market order form.
27 in the E-mini, there's been this order that's been there and not there. You see here, they pulled and it came down, and the buyer brought it back up. He's buying a lot to get it to go here. Whether he can
Vlad
push
Stolyarov
through all
says
this,
AMD good volatility stock.
I have to say this looks really intimidating to me. But somebody is trying to push it through. Okay. So am I going to get filled on that? I'm kind of an okay spot. How come it still says stop limit?
Uzi Knesset says I will concede it's tougher to see an S. I've tried.
Okay.
But the same thing generally applies with just a wider margin of error in terms of price trading through it.
I don't have the
Vlad
Vista charts up for
Stolyarov says they
these.
pushing NQ up.
I do see that the NQ-ES correlation is kind of going flat and might possibly reverse. But if that's the case, I think I'm going to revert to a range making strategy. What was this big bid that came in at one point? That's kind of weird. When we sold. Oh, I don't know if it was a bid or not. I think it was probably an offer that shoved us down.
Philly Beats You says someone's sitting there all evil not wanting the market to move. Vlad Stolyarov says holding early lows is still bullish. Vlad Stolyarov says we didn't break down yet.
Yeah, we really didn't. So you see there was a tepid attempt at short by the sellers, and the buyer seems to be holding it again. It's weird. But the Treasury upticked again. Are they going to start hitting into 27? Here's where I'm wondering if the liquidity might start pulling, and they might one of these prices there's probably going to be some liquidity pull. Assuming that we really are getting a bull run, and with the way that we've seen the volume come through here in the 10-year, it really looks like somebody's willing to just gulp it up. But if these don't pull, then we might fizzle out real quickly, right? Oh, that buyer's trying so hard.
SFDFD says it's not shove us down. It's shoved me down. Take ownership of your positions.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I can make anything of that, but
Vlad
I'm not
Stolyarov says I
surprised
want
that
a short
they...
NQ so bad. Vlad Stolyarov says but TSLA is 435.
That freaking Tesla, man. Turkey currency crisis moving to bond market yield on Turkey's latest dollar bond jumps 20 basis points. Oh, that's a huge move. Oh, wow. Uptick in the 10-year again. Apparently, this doctor that says that they can prove that coronavirus is a bioweapon has published her other report. Zero Hedge is going all yappy about it. Her last account was suspended in less than 2 days. How long will it take this time? Well, because you're talking about it, it might not even take a few minutes. Okay, kind of like right on the edge there. So there's been a couple of attempts to push it back on the bull side that are not going too well. Cumulative delta definitely looks short. Hmm. Then you get these sorts of things.
Vlad Stolyarov says let's see if NQ bounces or dies here. Vlad Stolyarov says it was third test of low.
How many times do you think it can do that? This is like a little bull run. It comes up and it quickly fades out. And I think there's a lot of orders rushing in when it happens, suggesting to me some stop run activity. I wish I could see the stops. Okay. The 26.5 in the 10-year is firming up a little bit and is
Vlad
actually
Stolyarov
absorbing
says as long as
now.
TSLA is green.
As long as Tesla is green. I'm seeing that the S&P 500 strengthen compared to the NASDAQ again, by the way. New last night during a phone call, Speaker Pelosi and Mnuchin floated restarting stimulus talks and said he'd have to convince Donald Trump first. They only substantially talked about airlines, but Mnuchin continues to be extremely motivated to get a deal.
Vlad Stolyarov says oil up too. Eric McDermott says virus not mutating as a normal virus would, so they believe it was designed in lab, a little germ war virus from our China friends or China leaders.
I forget what her proof was, but I just remember that she said, I have a smoking gun, and then it wasn't a smoking gun. Okay, so now political report coming about Mnuchin floated restarting the stimulus talks. I think that is a reason to... I think that is a good reason to bail on this.
Vlad Stolyarov says slightly smiling face. Uzi Knesset says guy at 30 pulled.
Did he pull or did he move it? There's some at 28. I don't remember that being a thing. Oh, look, there's a downtick, man.
Vlad Stolyarov says JPM extended up a lot.
Getting diced pretty hard here in the treasuries, aren't we?
SFDFD says that Eric McDermott heard that too from an evolutionary biologist.
Jake Sherman still sounds bearish on a deal. He says so many hurdles. SCOTUS process begins next week. Senate GOP reluctance to a deal at the level Pelosi wants. The House is out 26 days until Election Day. Pelosi will speak at 10:45 in the Capitol. So she will be speaking in about 20 minutes.
Vlad Stolyarov says these bulls are relentless in NQ. Eric McDermott says China quarantined that area of virus. Send out people around world. How clever.
Now they go down, huh? Flat.
Vlad Stolyarov says broke under 11,500. Vlad Stolyarov says 11,488 test.
Watch. So this time I'm going to do the
SFDFD
opposite.
says that Eric McDermott I think it's Joe's friends that financed the making of the virus.
Okay. Watch them
Uzi
go and touch
Knesset
the
says C30 guy pulled, market went down there, and he snuck back in.
Okay. Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe I'm just luck of the draw bad and have no edge. The issue is that theoretically in this kind of choppy action,
SFDFD
I
says good
should
job,
be
Seth.
doing well.
You did pretty well on those trades.
Oh, shut the fuck up, dude. I know who you are. Get lost. Salim needs to get a life. You know what, dude? I would stop fucking around because, you know, we have your Facebook account. And I don't think that you want everybody in life to know how big of a retard you are.
Uzi
Right?
Knesset says with that slime again.
Hmm. The Treasury is just going to come and get me, man. So I'm going to bail on this and not touch that anymore. They touched the 30. I don't recall. I didn't see a iceberg there. Oh, you can't watch multiple things, huh?
Uzi Knesset says he came back on the market order side. His limits were gone, but he hit 30.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, we're gonna get the EIA.
Uzi Knesset says Mr. Sneaky Pants.
So do you think it's a buy here and then? Not so sure. What? No, I said I wasn't gonna touch it, but
Eric
look at
McDermott
that
says
at
so.
25.5.
Is it all about the bailout deal that is pushing your treasuries in the S&P? If they get the deal, the SPY should go blasting, you think?
You know what?
Uzi Knesset says it's a low risk buy. Rob Farley says thanks for your videos on Ninja and others.
Yeah, hey, thank you, Rob. So to the question, in the Treasury, I'm not sure if that's anything other than just rotation.
No deal yet.
I'm not sure if that's anything more than just rotation. It seems like the E-mini, though, is probably
Vlad
moving
Stolyarov says only airlines maybe to get it faster.
Yeah. But they're talking about, like, restarting the whole thing up. See, there's this issue we have with this, which is that Wall Street has been stupid about this stuff. They just think, stimulus is going to happen. They hear stimulus, the robots start trading, and everybody thinks that the deal is going to happen. And they don't realize the political realities. So this is why Jake Sherman's Twitter account has been so useful, because he understands all of the obstacles.
Uzi Knesset says trouble as, I don't have a lot of confidence in any trends forming in treasuries because of the bond auction, so signals ain't really worth much today.
Yeah.
Vlad Stolyarov says market reads reality wrong, yeah.
But don't you think it's interesting that the 10-year was willing to buy up those huge blocks and everything? Yeah, see that one at 25.5. As soon as it ticked 1839 and it held that strongly after an uptick, I knew this guy is iceberged in. But the issue is that they're just doing the range here. So to buy 26.5 is, unless I really expect a breakout, I really can't buy 26.5. I just have to sit there with that and hope that it would fill me, which is unlikely. Okay, so up here, I want to take some off.
Uzi Knesset says yeah, it's certainly just rotating. Try to play the sell side of the range.
Think so? All right, let's try and play that side right there. I'll take 2. Okay. So I just took a lot of leverage off in the E-mini.
Uzi Knesset says just don't expect a rocket ship in your favor. Shit's so tight, 1 to 3 ticks maybe. Vlad Stolyarov says it'll be there. Vlad Stolyarov says let a mini go up to 40.
Well, what I've done is I've been able to get my average cost basis like well below the low of the day, right? So I can afford to see if it'll run at the highs.
Vlad Stolyarov says CNBC talking about IBM. Vlad Stolyarov says oil stocks rallying.
Okay. So I'm thinking now, are they going to turn full on bull? Because after all of that, they break a new high. I think that people should be pretty excited about it. They're seeing if they can get anybody to hit 27 in the 10-year. 30-year did bounce back up there. That's funny.
Eric McDermott says what correlation, if any, of treasuries to the dollar or SPY or commodities? Is it a safe haven?
Well, so you asked me this like a bunch of times. Was that I'm a little. So, what is the larger thing that you're trying to figure out here? Because I feel like I should have already been able to answer it, and I'm thinking maybe we're not asking the right questions. Treasuries is most definitely a safe haven play, right? How about I approach it this way? What are the main influences on various instruments. Okay. The main influence on the 10-year Treasury is going to be three things. One is going to be future Federal Reserve policy, and that is the primary reason that Treasuries are a safe haven play, because they make the Federal Reserve policy makes Treasuries move up when the economy is doing poorly. Okay, so that's the primary reason that the Treasuries are a safe haven play. The next thing that is going to move the Treasuries is going to be supply and demand coming from banks around the world moving things. So there's absolutely a correlation where when people move into the dollar, they will often use that money that they moved over to the dollar to buy treasuries and vice versa. Okay. So there's definitely a correlation there. And the last thing is going to be the risk reward that you get for holding the treasury compared to the interest rate that you get. So if investors feel that the balance sheet of the United States is not look very good, then they're going to say, well, holding treasuries is a lot more risky for me because you guys keep spending money, so you're going to have to give me a higher interest rate. Okay, which was kind of the move that we saw on Monday. So those are the main things that come out. I guess another correlation to that would be, how many treasuries are actually being put out by the Treasury Department, how many treasuries are actually being bought by the Federal Reserve. Like there's supply and demand with it, right? Okay. The dollar. What affects the dollar? Well, the primary thing that affects the dollar is supply and demand from large banks and other countries moving money around the world. So, if people want to move over into the United States, move their money over into the United States and invest here, they're going to have to buy dollars. But right now, things are kind of risk on. When people are willing to take on risk, that also means that they're usually willing to take on risk outside of the United States, because you can usually get a higher return on your capital by investing in emerging markets, because those are new things, right? So you get this thing, the dollar moves down, equity indexes move up, treasuries may or may not move up or down based on what they think the Federal Reserve is going to do, right? So you got this kind of a situation where, there's correlations. And the most common correlation that you're going to see is that treasuries move opposite of the E-mini. If the E-mini is moving up, the treasuries tend to move down. But it depends, because it's not the correlation that's driving it. It's the fundamentals underneath of them that tend to drive them opposite directions, right? So if Federal Reserve policy is that they are going to reduce interest rates, or let's say right now that they were going to do negative interest rates, or they were going to do yield curve control, which would involve buying 30-year treasuries, that is economic stimulus. So not only would buying up 30-year treasuries, because that increases demand, that would push 30-year treasuries up, but it's also a boost to the stock market, because that means easier monetary conditions for the stock market. You can borrow money for 30 years for cheaper. Okay, that's good for stocks. And so you will see they both go up at the same time, right? So what you've got to do is you've got to understand each instrument, and I really mean each instrument: oil, gold, copper, the dollar, equity indexes, treasuries, all of these futures at the CME, and understand what are the correlations, what are the dynamics making that instrument move today, and what does that tell you about the macro environment. And then you can use that to determine which directions you want to take your trade. So, how do we apply that to today? Well, seems to me that the big issue that is moving the markets right now is that they are still hoping that there could be an economic stimulus. At the very least, that it will be airlines, which is good generally overall for stocks. In the treasuries, because the amount that they're talking about is within the amount that like the Treasury has already printed, it doesn't necessarily affect the supply of treasuries. Now, if it were talking about a $4 trillion stimulus, then the treasuries start moving down. See what I mean? So that's why it's like, well, it seems like the theory that the market is trading off of right now is positive, and so they're going to buy it. But, by the way, I should take this off here. Big but, it might not happen. They might get disappointed. Nancy Pelosi might come out here in a few minutes and say something that just really bearish, right? And if that's the case, then the equity indexes might turn back down here, and the treasuries might even move up a little bit. Another dynamic that is happening today is that there's a 30-year auction. So you're really likely to see people trying to hedge the calls that they're making, the amount of treasuries that they're looking to buy at the auction. So you'll see icebergs and lots of contracts being picked up in places. But since we don't know what yield they're targeting, it's kind of hard to really make good probability plays, and I don't know how to play that game. The Hill. Harris and Pence spoke for about the same amount of time during the debate. Wrong. Harris got like 3 more minutes. Whatever. Close, I suppose. Okay, so does that answer the question about what the correlations are with the treasuries?
Eric McDermott says thank you. Nice explanation. You could be an econ teacher. Or consider a treasury job. Smiley face. Seems VIX is sometimes faking us out. Doesn't always correlate or dollar gets stronger, gold not in sync.
Very true. Because what really moves the VIX? What really moves the VIX is the amount of options that people are buying and what they're paying for calls versus puts and so forth. So if everybody and their dog has suddenly decided that they're going to play out of the money call options, you can actually see a situation where the VIX rises, even though it's a bullish backdrop, which is what we've seen recently, because they're pushing the indexes up with out of the money calls. Makes VIX rise. So that's where a lot of the heuristics that I think people use. I guess one of the things that I would say is avoid using heuristics. Like the E-mini is inversely correlated to the treasuries. That's a heuristic, right? It's like a quick, fast rule that usually they move opposite each other. It's generally not sophisticated enough to make money. Okay, well, they're trying to pull back up here. I could add, but because Pelosi's speaking right now, I don't really want to add risk. In fact, I really wish that I was able to get that 33 and that I only had one contract on, if that. On the other hand, I don't think that Nancy would do a full-on press conference at this point unless she was going to say something good. She already was kind of put the kibosh on everything yesterday. Okay, Nady has a link for it here. Why do you link me to the Washington Post, Nady? Gosh. I don't like Washington Post.
Vlad Stolyarov says well NQ back in the middle chop.
Really
Vlad
haven't
Stolyarov
seen
says so far nothing too bearish.
really haven't seen the NASDAQ turn on yet, have we? Okay, Nancy hasn't come out yet. I'll turn that on here and just kind of have it in the background. You will not be able to hear it, so if you want to hear it, you should go and pull up the link that they have in Discord.
Vlad Stolyarov says because. Vlad Stolyarov says it's lagging though BHC NFLX NVDA. Eric McDermott says how you learn know so much this stuff. Self-learned school hard knocks. Smiley face.
Yeah, I read a lot of books and watched CNBC a lot. So this is where I really think that watching CNBC can be really useful to you, even though I know a lot of people don't like CNBC. So you're going to get on, and especially these shows like Fast Money and Mad Money at the end of the day, they will go in and they will talk about all of those, and they will say, okay, here is each instrument that had a significant move today. Why is that happening, and what do you think about it? And they will basically, they're saying, what is the trading narrative that is causing that move? And, over time and experience, then you get a good idea about how certain news stories will move things and whether they're significant or not. And, just reading a lot of news in general. This is why I feel very strongly that the prevailing narrative in the retail trading community, that you really don't need to know anything about the fundamentals and that you can just trade price, is harmful, because it prevents traders from learning the things that they really need to know to be successful. If you're just looking at one instrument, you're not getting the whole picture. You won't know what's going on, and you're basically just leaving things up to chance.
Eric McDermott says very cool. My econ teacher would flunk me again.
Well, I
Vlad
didn't
Stolyarov
major
says
in
scammers
economics.
sending me links on email saying unusual activity with PayPal.
Yeah, man, I get so many calls on my phone. You know what the mistake was, is I gave my phone number to the Utah Republican Party, and the guy that was in charge of all of the tech stuff at the time basically
Knesset
sold
says
all
that's
of our
just Salim.
addresses.
You can ignore them, lol.
And now it's okay. So they're taking another run here, even though Pelosi hasn't stepped out yet. Okay, that's a lot of volume. I don't want to be in anymore. I want to be out while Nancy's speaking. That might be a mistake, but I don't know. I feel like I kind of said, okay, I'm not doing very well. Let's give ourselves a little bit more risk and play that game, and I did well.
Uzi
and so now that I've
says
done
get
that,
the
I
plus
want
one
to
then.
reduce it.
You're not gonna get a home run today.
You think I should just take it off at 26 in the 10-year? Well, I think what I could do is I could do that, because I have two over there. I'm not as concerned about the Treasuries moving.
Uzi Knesset says if you're nervous about the risk of the press conference, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not as concerned about it in the Treasuries, to be honest. Because the amount of stimulus that they're talking about, I don't think it should be a significant mover to the Treasuries. It's really more like well, let me take that back. If she came out and she said, we're not doing stimulus, we think that we can get a better deal after we win the election, and we're going to do $4 trillion, and they can just stop even trying to talk to us because we're not going to do it, Like if she came out and said that, then I think treasuries could move down because a $4 trillion stimulus is a lot. Okay, so I gave me one. See, the reason that I was having an issue in the 10-year is because I was playing a breakout, right? It come out to the top. I was trying to break it out. No. I was playing the wrong context for sure over there. That's where you'll get out of sync because what'll happen is you get stopped out.
Uzi
And
Knesset
then-
says I was here for you though, bro, winking face.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Uzi. I think that we did okay that time in that I recognized what was happening. Listen, I haven't been taking this too seriously, to be honest with you. I really feel like I don't want to put on any real risk until after the election, if not next year. Oh, well, look, they took it. Okay. And so I haven't really been taking it seriously. And it's like I start losing.
Uzi
and then I'll
Knesset
start
says,
doing
oops,
dumb
lol.
things. No, I did that on purpose. Because I didn't think that I was going to get filled that easily. I'm not necessarily expecting it to tick into 25, though. Right? Like, I got filled and I have the edge.
Uzi Knesset says, ooh, you play in the LP card, slightly smiling face.
Right. Ooh, we're doing sophisticated stuff today, guys. Huh? Showing off. But the reality is that I haven't been happy with my trading and I'm not putting any
Uzi
real
Knesset
risk on.
says, snazzy lol.
Yeah. Sometimes I really want to just be like, click, 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 click. Oh, take a profit here. Okay, click, click. It's when it's been off stream, I've done a bit of that, and it's fun. It's so much fun.
Pivot Analytics says I click.
Oh, hey, how are you doing today, man? I haven't seen you in stream for a while.
Uzi Knesset says play the Dom like an RTS game. Lol.
Yeah, exactly. Did you take
Pivot
one?
Analytics says sup brother. Doing okay.
Have you staked out? You don't have to tell me what your position is, but have you staked out a position today? Because I found this action today to be incredibly difficult to analyze. We've done okay by catching the range and doing a little bit of sizing up, but took me to fall flat on my face a couple of times before I reverted to that.
Vlad Stolyarov says days like today Martingale.
Well, I sized up. I said I always
Pivot Analytics
will say,
says yay a little bit choppy, just messaged you.
okay, here he's gonna tell me. Yeah, I got you. Well, that's why I was kind of asking, because when I read your brief, you sounded a little bit, uncertain.
Uzi Knesset says me, I took a paltry +3 at 8:40 this morning my time.
Yeah, that's fine. 3 or 4, and if you average 3 or 4 a day in the treasuries, I think you're in a good spot for scalping. Like, honestly, it's always been the case that I will catch the big runners, and that's probably part of my problem, right? I'll swing too big.
Pivot Analytics says uncertain is a good word. Did some individual stock shorts today, but you know me, always bullish higher time frame. Vlad Stolyarov says NFLX looks bearish to me.
Oh, by the way, that
Vlad
drop there in
Stolyarov
the
says, but it's
E-mini,
inside day still.
that drop there in the E-mini, I kind of have to wonder if that's not somebody taking off risk too. I don't know if that was a real short. It was like they wanted out and people pulled the liquidity on them. I don't know if it's a thing. And there's a big order showing up there, 34.28, just below the pivot. Okay, here she's coming out. She's going to take the mask off to talk, or is she going to talk with the mask on? Okay. Five-year ticked up there.
Vlad Stolyarov says Pelosi and her headlines about airlines.
Oh, she used the word crush. We have to crush the virus or we can't reopen safely. I just don't agree with that. This will be the big question. If Democrats win, will they still say that we need to crush the virus? Because I know a lot of people say it's just political, but we'll find out, right? Well, I tell you what, I am at the back of that queue in the 10-year. They want Phil.
Uzi Knesset says we must live in a nation of immortals. If people do, we cannot live normally lol. Uzi Knesset says die asterisk.
Well, what she's saying right now doesn't sound too bullish to me. Ooh, there's a big iceberg there, 25.5. So maybe somebody rate locking there a bit. She's just saying Republicans hate science
Uzi
and so
Knesset
forth.
says it's times like these, where every life matters and is suddenly so precious, I can't help but wonder why I can still buy a carton of cigarettes every week lol.
How can I still drive? Yes, right. A little bit of pulling now.
Uzi Knesset says I guess my death by lung cancer will just be my privilege lol.
So Nancy is basically saying that they have a plan and she's trying to boost her plan. This does not sound to me like, okay, let's try and give people confidence on making a deal. Sounds like more, uh, how do you say, holding out. You know what I mean? And it does sound like it's the 2.1 trillion deal. I tell you, like I'm just why, like I'm thinking, I know what needs to be said. Crushing the virus is a bad strategy. That was never the deal. We flattened the curve.
Uzi Knesset says Nacy doesn't want to crush the virus. She wants to crush your wallet, so you need her. Eric McDermott says the sugar police will also get your ding-dongs. Dot in sugar goodies, stock up, or stop doing hooch so won't get munchies.
They're enabling deaths.
Uzi Knesset says I just want saying mean things to be illegal. Only a Biden presidency can accomplish my dreams.
Here, let me turn her on.
If there's one thing that has to be in this bill that he has never made as a priority, it's crushing the virus.
Stop it! They're not crushing is a bad strategy.
Lack of reality
That needs to be the thing. Crushing the curve is bad. That was never what healthcare officials recommended. That was never the plan. It was always flatten the curve. Flatten the curve. 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And then all of a sudden that turned into crush. And now Nancy's coming out. We have to crush the no. Wrong.
Over the years. So
Wrong. It would be you want to crush the virus, you have to shut everything back down. It would be a disaster.
As many people as possible. And let me just close by saying this. When the president did his tweet,
Greg Davis says the
said,
vax is the endgame of this thing.
I want the Senate to spend fully focus on the nomination. So I'm not going to have them be doing anything on stopping the spread of
PRT1 says the virus has and will work through the population.
Full focus on the nomination. Why?
We'll focus on the nomination.
Uzi Knesset says they want to crush us. Really simple. Have to destroy that good economy, so free everything. Suddenly sounds like a good idea.
The Affordable Care Act. They overturn the Affordable Care Act. This in the time of a pandemic.
Greg Davis says the church is saying the vax sounds like the mark of the beast.
And overturning the Affordable Care Act. Overturning the pre-existing condition benefit that 150 million families in America.
So she's saying that they're not going to do a deal, right?
Overturning the fact that tens of millions more people have access to health care. Overturning the preventive and essential benefits.
Uzi Knesset says pretty sure cell phones already took that title lol.
Of the Affordable Care Act, including if you have a senior in your
family do it right here, okay?
Who is on long-term care, much of it paid for by Medicaid.
Vlad Stolyarov says NQ acting like it likes higher prices again.
To misrepresent.
Yeah, NQ is taking the lead again.
For that benefit? Well, we haven't seen it in 4 years. We haven't seen it.
Pantax says can't crush the virus, but also can't dismiss it like Trump administration.
Unlimited expenses.
What do you think they should do, though?
With not having the pre-existing conditions.
Because I feel like they got therapeutic treatments. We've got social distancing and masks. Like, what else is there to be done?
Insurance company caps of what they would spend on a person. So lives are at stake.
I think they're right to say, yeah, okay, we've put the plan in place and we've done everything, and now it's time to start building up confidence and stuff.
Not a skinny, not an emaciated, but a serious, appropriate approach to
they're not doing a deal with what she's saying.
And then talk about some
Uzi Knesset says you have a 99% chance of surviving COVID on average. How much more perfect do people want? Lol.
The chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee.
Obviously, they won't be happy until we're all socialists.
and we're
Sunday
blessed
Driver
that
says
he
it's
would
too
have
catchy.
his leadership
Crushing
at
the
this
virus won't
time,
work.
to address this issue.
PRT1
Mr.
says more
Kamal.
life at stake if shut down.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me just thank you for
She's still pushing her old bill.
continuing to focus on crushing the virus, as you say repeatedly to me. And to the
So,
caucus of the American people.
but here's the
And,
thing that I would catch
you
off
know,
of
and
this.
what you said,
Okay,
what you just said, you constantly say
they are now
to be the
making their carry-on call be
PRT1 says
crush
Kentucky
the
might get a
virus.
civil war if another shutdown.
They're saying that we need to crush the virus.
Uzi
She said it
Knesset
so
says
many
they won't be
times.
happy until we're dependent on them. People keep overlooking the power variable. The goal is power.
And the speaker never has.
The
I mean, I haven't been
message,
negotiations, but whenever
the plan, the idea that the Democrat Party has chosen to push now is crush. They use the words crush the virus. This is a huge mistake.
It's hard for me to believe that it's now October.
We all know that crushing the virus was never the goal, and it was never a possibility.
Still doesn't have a national testing, tracing, surveillance, and containment plan in place.
Greg Davis says catchphrase.
Very beginning.
Sunday Driver says she wants to bail out blue cities and states under the guise of fighting the virus.
Vlad Stolarov says, yeah, nobody cares about lockdown.
I think that this is much more about optics.
To the people that work for him in the White
The
House
thing that's dogging the Donald Trump campaign is the response to the virus. If she comes out and she puts the standard at crushing the virus, which is completely unrealistic, then there is no way that Donald Trump can ever live up to what Democrats are saying should happen. And because everybody's been going along with that, it's been working. But the mistake that they're making is that if we really start to have a discussion about whether we should try to crush the virus or not, the Democrats are going to lose that discussion.
It's just insane what he does. He refuses.
Makes sense?
Or
You understand? I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm just saying that's what I think.
National plan to deal with this, and
the state is paying for that.
well, that's the other thing. The state, received. We did have money in the CARES Act, again, thanks to the speaker.
Uzi Knesset says they still don't have an authoritarian plan in place where every individual action is monitored by a bloated government bureaucracy. Eric McDermott says, remember, Govit people, D.C., especially will still get paid $$ on any shutdown. How about they Gov people D.C. not get paid either a little sacrifice like rest of people?
HEROES Act that we passed last week to address this, but I just have to emphasize again that the president, in cutting off the negotiations and refusing to talk about this, is making the possibility of this national plan less and less likely every day. He just doesn't want to do it. Now, in terms of the testing and the contact tracing, I think you know that we have $75 billion in funding to support the testing, the contact tracing, and the surveillance. But just as important as the money is the fact that we have, we state not only that we should have a
PRT1 says that is right. What they are proposing will crush us in North American economy. Uzi Knesset says for real, cut Congress's fucking paychecks for lockdowns and watch how fast they change their minds about that shit.
Country and health experts that have
Really need to put a ducking on
you
here.
need 4 million a minimum per day. So that's less than 25%, if you will, of what's absolutely necessary. So when anybody tells you we're doing enough testing, or the president says anybody can be tested, it is simply not true. We are not doing enough testing. And the bottom line is that it's also a question of the national government setting guidelines. Why do you think different states use different types of tests, and a lot of times the tests don't work? They scramble for the things they use for the testing. Different states don't know what to do about the schools and when they should open or what they need to open. This should be all done on a national level, and this is done in a lot of other countries on the national level.
Baby.
And it's not being done here because the president doesn't want to have a national plan. Now, we have also,
Uzi Knesset says it's not that we aren't doing enough testing, it's that people don't want to get tested anymore.
Talk about vaccines. But we also, in the updated HEROES Act, address the vaccines very effectively. We create a national vaccine plan. We provide $28 billion in additional funds to develop, manufacture.
Really decrease it so that when I'm talking, it goes down. There we go.
Of those funds, $7 billion go to conducting activities to expand and improve vaccine distribution. A lot of that actually will go to the states, which we said need it for them to continue. And also, $1 billion goes to evidence-based public awareness campaign. The states have been asked by October 16th, which I believe is next week, to put together individual plans for vaccine.
Octavius C. says 606,000 people died from cancer in the U.S. in 2020. Shouldn't the Dems be more concerned with cancer?
Really?
If they're going to be able to have an
Did not know that. That really puts things in perspective.
has that, but if it's not passed, and
Uzi Knesset says there always has been and still is absolutely no reason to get tested at all unless you want your state and local government building a hotel in your anus.
plans that they have to put forward by next week. Now, all we've heard from the president until
Sunday driver says I'm at the all fuck it point. Just go out and live your life. I'm tired of hiding in my apartment.
by election day, whether or not it was going to be effective. Thank God, and I mean that, thank God that the FDA went ahead and issued these new guidelines that make it
Now he's saying, thank goodness that we won't be able to get these therapeutic treatments as soon.
has been finally developed to actually test it and make sure we don't have adverse effects. I always say, it's like when you go to the hospital and they say, oh, the operation was successful, but the patient died. We don't need a vaccine that may not be effective, but we also don't need a vaccine that's actually going to have so many adverse events that, people die from the effect of the vaccine. So the bottom line is now at least we have the FDA out there with the guidelines, but we're still concerned that he may override the FDA and just go ahead and say, well, this is a vaccine anyway, it's okay.
Uzi Knesset says that journalists love these ideas too because with all of us unemployed, sad, broken, and waiting for government checks, we'll sit around and rot while consuming more of their bullshit.
With Regeneron.
Well, I doubt that they really think of it through like that, but probably because of the incentives, it turns into that, yeah.
Treated with. And now he issued a video, I guess, in the last 24 hours saying, well, I'm going to have this thing approved by the FDA under emergency use, and I'm going to have it distributed and manufactured, and everybody's going to have it again. Well, again, language that's saying, I'm going to override the FDA. I'm going to override the science. I know what. Needless to say, we don't know if it works, and we have no reason to believe that it's going to be available. I think they said the company that produces it that they have.
I think that if you want to get that medication, you should be allowed to.
People got the virus.
I don't care if it's fully tested. Like people's freaking lives, dude.
So what are you talking about, Mr. President? Once again, you're ignoring the science. You're politicizing the issue. Stop.
They're the ones politicizing the issue.
Get the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act has the tools and the resources necessary to crush the virus. We're not going to wish this away. We have to rise to the challenge. The Speaker has risen to the challenge. The President has not. Please, Mr. President.
Well, the market's still kind of chugging along.
PRT1 says you have Right to Life Act.
Signed into law so we can crush the virus and do the responsible thing, as our Speaker said, for the American people. And thank you again, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Mr.
I mean, I could be wrong, but I feel like that a deal is less likely after this.
Again, we have put resources for testing again and again and again. But left to their own devices, they did not have a plan except to use it almost in a political way. And this is a plan to do it in a scientific way. I also want to make the point that is very important to our plan, is that we are recognizing that the communities of color have been disproportionately hit by this virus. And that's why we need testing, tracing, treatment, separation, et cetera, addressed into those communities. And that's part.
Sunday driver says she's refusing to submit a focus bill.
Just before take questions.
Yeah, she's refusing to submit a focus bill. So you're not going to get the airline. It's back to the $2.1 trillion stimulus bill that Donald Trump says is not serious and rejected. So we're back to Wednesday or Tuesday. We're back to Tuesday.
Their rejection of doing this
is just kind of waiting for the market to figure it out.
To people of color and how they want to spend their money on the schools is harmful to children of color.
The way that her mask is coming up off of her nose, it's completely useless.
Every ill in society in this bill. I said, that's true. This is coronavirus centric, but I'm not going to make matters worse and solidify the disparity
PRT1 says she should say communities of liberal are hardest hit by virus.
continues to spread.
You guys.
Administration most recently, last evening, I said you still
I'm never going to get any Democrats to watch me, am I?
to respond.
Vlad Stolyarov says she's not saying anything productive.
They admit
No,
it.
she's not.
Question?
She really is not.
Yes, Brent.
Eric McDermott says we trust you, Nancy.
Sunday Driver says POC have been hit because they're fucking peaceful protesting. She's such a race beta.
Uzi Knesset says CUMOONITES of COOLOR blah blah. Yeah, try to save your reputation with them because you know you killed business sectors that employ them the most.
This issue, and now the president.
Vlad Stolyarov says NVDA had 11 a.m. reversal at least technically.
4 people in the White House infected by this, and still not an acceptance of what needs to be done. I think that the public needs
Yeah, people are going to catch it, Nancy.
health condition of the president. There's one question that they refuse to answer.
If Democrats win,
When was
every
got the virus
person
and admitted to
catches the virus
was his last
during Joe Biden's presidency,
when
you nail it to them to the wall, man. Because this is so dishonest. It is a ridiculous standard.
the press asks the question, it gets
Come
deflected.
on, Ashley.
But it is
My infant son is sitting there watching me get all animated. He's like, "What are you getting so uppity about?"
from the Gold Star families.
You're making me mad.
Believe that?
This one right
Say
here.
such a thing.
I do not like her.
Probably got this from the Gold Star families.
Yeah.
So
He shakes his head. He's like, "Nah, I don't like her either."
tested negative.
Wish you could see her, but last time I tried moving the camera, it didn't work out,
On the
and
subject
it just made a big mess. So I'm
how
like,
we crush the virus and how we go forward. Are there any questions for our chairman? Yes, sir.
I just wanted to ask about the negotiations
Well,
quickly.
that, about this subject, and it's related.
Yeah.
I will come back to it because this is central to the
oh,
negotiations.
so they wanted to ask the negotiations, and she won't let them because we need to talk about how we have to crush the curve.
Get to the heart of the matter and crush this. Yes, ma'am.
Madam Speaker, thank you. On this topic, it's clear that the issue is as much about the president pulling away from the negotiations, but also the Republicans in the Senate who have shown some concern about spending more money. Yet at the same time, we saw some Republican senators coming out and saying they thought it was a mistake to walk away from the negotiations. Are you in any way talking to Leader McConnell, to any of these Republican senators who perhaps could weigh in on this in a way that would help bring some resolution here?
Okay, so you're not talking about this subject either. Anybody want to talk about?
We all seem
We're
to be
talking
confused
about the
respectfully.
COVID talks.
What are we?
Are these
Do you want
not
to
the
talk about the
COVID
bill, or
talks?
do you want to talk?
What we want to talk about is the fact that we have,
She doesn't want to talk about it.
to your point about the
The
Republican,
press only cares about the talks. She doesn't even want to talk about it.
to what the president is doing in terms of ignoring the science that could save lives. So that is the point of this, and it is central to the negotiations, and there's no way that we.
Oh, this is a funny one. When Nancy was saying the American public needs to know the status of Trump's health, and News Squawk is saying, I guess Nate Pelosi didn't watch him on Fox News this morning.
Seems to be, I don't know what
Look,
about how you don't.
they're reacting to it
understand
now,
That this is, we are where we are
realizing it.
because of that. Do you have any questions about what Mr. Pallone is proposing? If not, I'll answer Garrett's question.
Wow, that it's a couple of ticks off.
Garrett,
but
I
that's
let me
okay.
just be really clear. I have been very open to having a single standalone bill for the airlines or part of a bigger bill.
Oh, now she's
No
willing to say.
standalone bill without a bigger bill. There is no bill because you asked the second
Sell.
question. Why should we
That's
do
a-
one
that's a
versus
sell.
the other? And so the comment.
She's willing to do a standalone bill, but really she's saying that they're not.
Review what that standalone bill would look like as part of a bigger bill, if there is a bigger bill. But there is no standalone bill.
You would not move forward at all on a standalone airline bill.
If we don't have a guarantee that we're going to be helping our state and local employees, that we're not going to be able to crush the virus, that we're not going to be able to have our children go to school safely, that we're not going to have safety in the workplace, that we're not going to address unemployment, that we're not going to have the And some of these issues, we have come to some area of agreement. But some of them we have not. But they have walked away from the whole package. And that includes 17 million children in the country food insecure, millions of their families on the verge of eviction, And the president says, well, I'll do these three things. No.
Uzi Knesset says I don't understand this, ignoring the science, crap. Look, they want lockdowns and shutdowns, right? Well, Trump can't friggin' do that. Our state and local governments do.
Yeah, you're right.
They advocated for a full bill.
Saying I should start a politics channel. I do have a politics channel, but I didn't really do anything with it.
Mnuchin said to you he's interested in getting back to talking about a larger bill, but he would need the president's buy-in. So you've been involved in
I would not put those exact words in his mouth, no.
So could you tell us what the exact words are?
My thing took a trade.
Exact words like that. It was what we were talking about, a single bill, a standalone bill, and
It made a little bit.
within a singular
Teeny bit.
because they have some.
It got out too quickly.
We had a UC, a unanimous consent request last week that the
It
Republicans.
was kind of a fluke, I think.
And so, and the Senate had their own version, which they even rejected themselves. The Senate Republicans rejected themselves. So the question is, what if there were to be a standalone bill, what does that look like? And the only point about negotiations is, ain't going to be no standalone bill unless there's a long-term.
Ain't gonna be no standalone bill, okay?
You've been involved in these negotiations now off and on since July over this package, and
Well, actually, since May.
since May. Okay.
It's almost 5 months. Excuse me.
More so. So, could you just give us a sense? I mean, the president pulled away. Mnuchin seems eager to do something. I mean, give us your prospects here of where you think things are, given your talks with Mnuchin and the president and McConnell's, I guess, hesitancy to or disagreement about the larger package. Could you just give us what your prospects are at this moment?
Well, I don't know what the prospects are when we hear people saying I'm young and I'm a perfect specimen, instead of addressing the fact that 50,000 people were infected, reported to be infected yesterday. Nearly 1,000 people died. What are we talking about here? Tomorrow, by the way, come here tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the 25th Amendment. But not to take attention away from the subject.
Targeted stimulus is dead, says News Squawk, is what they're tweeting.
Very hard.
They have a picture.
On language. Because if you don't have the language, you're just giving them a blank check to do what they have done, which is.
Sounds to me like stimulus is dead.
Crushing the virus. And so what we're saying is, with all the trust that we had before, and let me use the word trust. Trust. With all the trust in the world that the argument would be so compelling to open up our economy and our schools and the rest, that they would do something. But they didn't. And now, Frank, for 5 months, it'll be 5 months in a few days, the 15th of May, 15th of October will be 5 months. So the point is that early on we had lots of negotiations.
Come on.
Know our justification for
don't be like that.
And they want to know our justification for earned income tax credit, because there's fraud there, right? Okay, you want to talk about fraud for the poorest people in America getting an earned income tax credit, while the president is paying $750 for his taxes in a year that he.
Now she's talking about his taxes.
Getting back to your question, we've been working on what the language would look like. We have our differences in numbers, but it's no use having just a numbers discussion unless we know what that money is spent on. Otherwise, we're just giving billions, hundreds of billions, more than $1 trillion, $2 trillion to the president to spend any way he wants, but not to address the issues at hand. So that's why it was so disappointing. I almost wondered if Mr. Mnuchin even knew the president was going to do that. I even wonder if Mitch McConnell and McCarthy knew that the president was going to do that. You might want to ask them. But the fact is is that in saying what he said, forget everything. We're just focusing on the Supreme Court nomination to overturn the Affordable Care Act. Was so undermining of all of the work. There's a lot of work, a lot of staff work that goes into clarifying so we have an understanding what the language means, making concessions here or there, or clarifications, or prioritizing in a different way. It's called legislating. It's called legislating. It's a
Yeah.
language.
Vaynetti is saying in Discord, what the heck is going on? We don't want to distract from the subject crushing the virus. Also, Donald Trump's taxes.
And I was optimistic because why would we engage in all these conversations?
This is a total disaster.
That something could come of it.
It's, anybody in the Democrat leadership, like, yank her off stage, please.
Until everything is agreed to.
You need to shut her up.
Always is.
She is doing serious damage to the Democrat Party right
Well,
now.
I'm hopeful because it has to be done. As the president.
Trump is asking the exact opposite. Focus spending and not a huge blank check.
But
It's
if he
true.
wants to wait until after the election,
You're right.
then that would be unfortunate because more people will die, more will be infected, more kids will have uncertainty about how they're learning, more kids will go without food. Evictions will, moratorium is a nice thing, but somebody's got to pay the rent at some point. And again, more people will be fired from our state and local government to meet the needs of the American people. So every day of delay is a problem. But again, we're not going to again ossify the injustices that have become part of
I
this.
think the tax loopholes where before Trump elected, also real estate has depreciation, expense write-offs. He paid alternative minimum tax a lot. Is Biden paying on? Yeah, you're right, Eric.
Such a virus.
The whole thing is just a misunderstanding of how taxes work for people in the real estate business. You don't pay the tax until you sell the property.
Thank you. In your talks with Secretary Mnuchin here, do you get the sense that he is on the same page with the president? I mean, you said it seemed like there might have been the situation that he didn't know that the president was pulling out, and Kamala didn't know.
I don't
I've heard
know
from
if
some
he did.
Republicans that they haven't liked what we've heard about some of the proposals he's put forth.
I believe the president probably informed. I don't know. You'll have to ask him. I asked him. He said he knew. I said, you knew he was going to tweet? You knew he was going to tweet that after you had been engaged in months?
Say Financial Juice is tweeting, Speaker Pelosi, I remain hopeful there will be a COVID relief bill because it has to be done.
Government, with all
How are they going to get a bill after what she just said?
of your point of view, trying to find reconciliation and common ground, that the Congress of the United States would be treated with disrespect by a tweet by the president to say it's off? Is that an appropriate notification? So that he could focus full time on the nomination. So this is not the way that happens. But again, we embrace there's a bad word for that. and again, it's not about him. It's about people in America who are susceptible
What
to
I'm
this.
getting at here is when he comes to your office or on the phone.
He's not coming to my office.
Well, I know that.
He's not coming to my office. I wouldn't allow him to come to my office.
Don't worry about me. I get tested all the time because I'm in conversation with the president. Really? I'll see you on the phone.
But when you're on the horn with the secretary, you get the sense that the president, chief of staff, they're all on the same page and they are.
Well, that was like she was being genuine on that one.
Negotiating position is.
Well, I don't know who you mean by they all.
Well, I said the chief of staff, the secretary of the
I
treasury.
don't know about the chief of staff.
president.
I mean, I don't even do that. But the
I
secretary
don't even do that.
of the Treasury has been designated by the president to engage in these negotiations. I have to trust of that. But why would he have these conversations if he's not speaking for the president of the United States? This is not an academic discussion. If he's not speaking for the president of the United States, there's no reason to have the conversation. I trust that he is. And I trust that he wants to understand the differences so we can try to find common ground, and hopefully we will. Now, let me just say another thing. Trust. Trust is a word that is so important in everything we do. And trust is important when we come to the vaccines. We all want to pray for a vaccine to come soon. We want to have it not one day sooner than it is safe and efficacious, but not one day later. God willing, it will come soon, and that will be an answer for us. And maybe that's what makes the administration act in the irresponsible way that they do about prevention, because they are placing so much on the vaccines. Thank God for the scientists at the FDA who are scientists, who are working 24/7. Who created warp speed, by the way, that the president launched onto? Who created warp speed?
Okay, so they are now breaking
And that they will, their
a pivot.
their
Well,
work,
there's
their
still
science, their
another one
genius will
below
be
us
rewarded
here.
by having the
Still the
appropriate
low of the day, I guess. This is this
clinical
big order that's
trials,
kind of been
so
chilling
that
down
what
here for a
comes out of it
while,
is something that we can
at
trust,
least in the micros.
not something politicized or a timetable that is hastened because of something else. Now, Frank, do you want to speak to the vaccine piece?
The DOM is actually very sparse from large
The Heroes
orders.
Act is trying to address a lot of the things that the speaker mentioned. In other words, not only do we have more money for actual development of the vaccine, but also for the distribution, because as I mentioned, actually
Now they're getting it.
by next week, I think it's October 16th is next week, are supposed to submit a plan. But again, they don't have the money to do it. And they don't, and in my opinion, a lot of the guidance they're getting isn't necessarily helpful. And you could very easily have very wide disparities from one state to the next, just like we did with the testing. For example, in New Jersey,
So what are they saying now? They're saying that state by state strategy doesn't work. So if the Democrats get put in charge, you see what they're going to do, right? They're going to make a bill that says that we can do the nationwide lockdown, and they're going to force everybody to lock
We're
down.
saying that this has to be nationalized. Not only do we have to provide the funding, as
Sold your short too soon.
said, which is in
This was a tough one
and
because I mean it's taking them a long time to
the contact tracing and the
figure
vaccine.
it out. I think when she's done talking, they'll probably sell some more.
Doing all this, that plan has clearly
Poor
failed
dog got left in
as
here.
far as the testing and the contact tracing is concerned, because they never developed a national plan. They left it up to the states. Now we're worried the same thing may happen with the vaccine. In other words, are states going to be competing for the vaccine, or they have no real guidelines nationally about how to distribute it? The speaker constantly talks about equitable distribution, right? It's not just a question of giving it out to a few select people. It's a question of making sure everyone gets it equitably, and very concerned about minority communities and underserved communities and how they're going to get it. And the president just keeps saying, oh, don't worry, everybody can test, everybody can get the vaccine. Or now, he moved on.
Everybody can get the therapeutic treatment. Why not?
The treatment that he had with this experimental drug. And there's no national plan, there's no uniformity. And he is ignoring the science once again. I mean, he said that with this latest drug that
Airlines folded pretty bad now, yeah.
within the last 24 hours asked for emergency use.
I bet. Look at the delta on this is massive.
In the media saying, we don't know whether this
Almost 10,000 contracts short now.
whether it's working on him. We don't even know when they don't give us the information about his own case. And it clearly is not available to any widespread way, even if it is approved and is effective. So, I felt, look, I can't commend you enough, Madam Speaker, because you keep saying that the heart of what happens with this negotiations has to be a national plan for testing, contact tracing, equitable vaccine distribution, and that's. And they're ignoring that, or they act like, oh, well, that doesn't matter because, that's not the main focus of what we're trying to do to crush the virus. It has to be the main focus, and that's what we're stressing.
Thank you. And I come back to the word trust, because when this vaccine is put forth in a scientific way with the appropriate clinical trials and consent from the scientific advisory committee that passes on these things, that people will have trust.
I would have liked to have taken one off there, but it's
Because
a
the
little
vaccine
late
is only
now.
as good as many people who will actually do it. And you see the numbers are very split in our country so far as to whether they would avail themselves of it. And that's why this has to be embraced for the scientific basis that it has, not ignored because of the doubt as to the timing of it.
Oh, it's 9:37. You know what? She's been going off. Well, let's just say that we take it off there.
And
I'm going to try and let it run for the day, but I have to go because I got to work. She talked way longer than I expected, so
I'll talk to you about it tomorrow. I'm not talking about it today.
totally lost track.
If you want to talk about that, we'll see you tomorrow. But you take
Talk
me
about
back
it
to my
tomorrow.
point. Mr. President,
Okay, guys, well, be careful. There's a lot of people short right now. It has gone crazy short, so it's likely to start getting volatile again when she's done talking. Yeah. Okay. I will see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, stay profitable, friends.